Have you ever noticed this? Things fading from our lives often don't go out with a bang. They just vanish quietly until you look back and realize they're gone. A corded phone, a morning newspaper, a TV guide on the coffee table. That familiar cha-ching sound at the checkout counter. We traded those things for speed and convenience, but we definitely lost some familiar comforts along the way. In this video, Back to Yesterday invites you to look back at 25 everyday items that are quietly disappearing. And maybe, in the end, the thing that moves you the most won't be the item itself, but a piece of your own youth. Landline phones, corded phones. The landline phone used to be the bedrock of every home and office. They were the backbone of every conversation, every emergency call, and the only way we stayed connected for decades. Who remembers being chained to the wall while talking because the cord was too short? Or hearing that classic clack-clack sound of the old-school ringer echoing through the house? Well, the sheer convenience of cell phones quickly rendered these corded landlines obsolete for most households in America. Although the role of landlines for individuals has decreased, interestingly, they remain an optimal choice for many businesses, especially in customer service. Why? Landline devices, whether traditional or improved VoIP using the internet, still ensure stable and clear sound quality. Landline connections are established by a separate network, rarely encountering congestion or overload. This is especially important in high-rise buildings or apartments where mobile signal is often weak, leading to unstable or lost calls. Furthermore, landlines provide transparency and authenticity for businesses, as registering a landline number requires a business license, increasing customer trust. For security, due to their fixed nature within the company, landlines help managers easily control customer data, limiting the risk of information theft when employees leave, which can happen when they use personal phones. While not comparable to smartphones in terms of features, the advantages of clear call quality, stable connections, and lower costs make the landline still the optimal option for offices. The phone book, yellow pages, white pages. Before Google was even born, we had the ultimate encyclopedia of phone numbers, the phone book. These were thick, bulky paper directories split into the white pages for residential personal info and the yellow pages for business info. They were once essential in every home and office. Getting the new directory every year was an event. Do you remember how heavy they felt when you picked up the book? They were an invaluable resource in every city and town. If you wanted the number for a grocery store, a plumber, or a friend, you had to flip through pages, often looking up names alphabetically. Finding information wasn't instant. It required patience. But with the boom of the internet and online search engines, these massive directories were quickly phased out. Today, we just type a few words on our phones and find information thousands of times faster and more detailed. Payphones/phone booths. Payphones used to be a common sight on street corners and outside businesses. They were big and bulky, but easily recognizable, especially if they had their own separate booth. For many who grew up with American pop culture, like Superman comic readers, they know that even the Man of Steel needed these phone booths to change into his suit to save the world. Payphones were a lifesaver during emergencies, or when you needed to call someone without a personal phone handy. Do you remember that specific smell of the receiver, where countless people's breath had lingered? And of course, we can't forget the familiar sound of dropping coins into the slot. It was a physical and social experience we've since forgotten. However, the widespread adoption of mobile phones quickly made these public phones obsolete. They were replaced by a more convenient and efficient solution, the smartphone in our pocket. Today, finding a working payphone or phone booth is increasingly difficult. Often, if you do find one, they are abandoned or broken. When was the last time you had to use a payphone to call home? Share that memory in the comments below. Pagers/beepers. Before cell phones became ubiquitous, there was an era when pagers, or beepers, were the pinnacle of urgent communication. This compact device was a vital tool, especially for professionals who needed to receive emergency messages quickly. Pagers worked simply. They vibrated and displayed a numerical code or a very short text message. This was the way to convey urgent messages. After receiving the signal, you then had to find a landline or a payphone to call back and get the full message. It was a necessary process, though quite slow compared to today's instant communication. The pager is a classic example of an item that disappeared because it was replaced by a superior solution. The emergence of mobile phones quickly rendered them obsolete. Cell phones offered two-way calling and messaging anytime, anywhere, providing better convenience and efficiency. Why rely on a device that can only receive urgent alerts when you can carry an all-in-one device in your pocket? Today, pagers, once symbols of urgency and professionalism, are mostly museum pieces. This shift shows that consumers always choose solutions that are easier, faster, and more integrated. Answering machines.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Before voicemail services were integrated directly into mobile phones and modern systems, we relied on a physical object, the answering machine. These devices were a communication milestone in home and office settings, allowing people to leave messages when you weren't there. However, they were often bulky devices and primarily relied on cassette tapes to record voice messages. You might remember the distinct sound of the tape whirring, or the feeling of having to press play and patiently listen to every single message. Checking messages was neither fast nor instant. Furthermore, those tapes could get tangled, fill up, or suffer from deteriorating audio quality over time. Like many other older items, the answering machine has been completely replaced by voicemail and visual voicemail services.
We hope you're enjoying your Radio Shack answering.
This replacement technology has proven superior in terms of efficiency, convenience, and integration. Instead of handling physical tapes, messages are now stored digitally, accessible anytime via our mobile phones without having to call a landline number or wait for the tape to rewind. Dial-up internet. Before broadband and fiber optics became the standard for every home and device, the only way to connect to the internet was through dial-up internet. For many of us, the characteristic screech, static, and beep of the modem trying to connect was the classic soundtrack of the late 90s and early 2000s. Do you remember the tense waiting to connect? It was a slow process. Dial-up-ception speeds were excruciatingly slow, and waiting for a web page to load was painfully tedious. Just downloading a simple image could take minutes, and online video streaming was almost impossible at that time. The world of dial-up internet demanded absolute patience. Thankfully, those screeching sounds and turtle-speed connections are a distant memory for most people. This disappearance is a perfect example of how, in the technology race, consumers always choose solutions that are easier, faster, and more integrated. The race for speed and stability quickly ended when broadband and fiber optic connections won. Floppy disks. In an era where we can easily store terabytes of data in the cloud, it's hard to believe that just a few decades ago, we relied on these fragile floppy disks. These disks, with their extremely limited storage capacity, were the primary means of moving documents between computers. Remember the days when a large file meant you needed multiple floppy disks? They were considered delicate storage devices, easily damaged. Just a small tear, an accidental brush with a magnetic field, or even a change in temperature could cause your important data to vanish forever. Although they were the best solution at the time, floppy disks made data storage a job requiring high caution. The emergence of new storage devices, specifically USB drives, quickly rendered floppy disks obsolete. USB drives offered greater capacity and much higher durability. This process proves the truth in technology. Greater convenience and efficiency are always the factors consumers choose. Floppy disks were the first link in the storage chain to disappear quietly. They paved the way for USB drives and then cloud storage. Even USB drives, after replacing floppy disks, are gradually becoming a memory as cloud storage services like OneDrive and Google Drive became widespread. However, these very floppy disks taught us the first lesson about the importance of data backup. They are now nostalgic relics, representing a digital age with many limitations. In the past, have you ever lost important data on one of those fragile floppy disks? Tell us your story. USB drives, older generation. It might sound strange to include USB drives on a disappearing list, since they're still used, but we're talking about older generation USB drives and their role as the primary means of transferring data. In the early 2000s, USB drives were an indispensable tool for students or office workers to move files between home and school computers. After replacing floppy disks due to their larger capacity and higher durability, the USB drive had its golden era. However, That era is over. Older USB crowds are gradually becoming nostalgic items due to the advent of powerful and convenient cloud storage services such as OneDrive and Google Drive. Data can now be synced and accessed anywhere, significantly reducing the need for physical USB drives. Furthermore, most older USB drives use the USB-A interface, while many modern laptops have switched to the smaller USB-C port. Although USB drives still have some useful applications, there is clearly no reason to use them in the near future, and they are considered one of the 4 outdated storage formats that users should bravely eliminate. Traditional hard drives, HDDs. There was a time when inside every computer lay a memory box spinning day and night. That was the traditional hard drive. Every family photo, every child's homework, every quickly typed love letter, or even a favorite song, all were contained within that small metal box. Do you remember the familiar clack, clack sound every time you turned the computer on? Or the feeling of anticipation when the computer started slowly, line by line, appearing on the screen? If the hard drive failed, everything could vanish in the blink of an eye. No cloud, no backup, no restore button. Today, those slow mechanical drives are gradually being replaced by super-fast memory SSDs and cloud storage. Computers now boot up almost instantly. Data is no longer confined to a box under the desk, but floats somewhere on the internet. More convenient, faster, but that also means we no longer hear the sound of the old hard drive spinning. A familiar sound, once the silent heartbeat of a whole generation of computers. Typewriters. Long before word processors or personal computers became essential office tools, we had one device that dominated the world of text: the typewriter. Typewriters were once essential items for almost every office, and many families owned them too. Early models were manual, mechanical devices. They worked by the user pressing a key, causing a mechanical arm to strike an ink ribbon, leaving an imprint on the paper. Later, electric models were introduced and were slightly easier to use. However, regardless of whether they were manual or electric, they required the user to have skilled typing abilities. What made the typewriter a challenge was the very limited ability to correct errors and format text. If you misspelled the word, correcting it was difficult and often ruined the document's aesthetic. The introduction of personal computers and word processing programs completely replaced the typewriter. The new technology offered unlimited editing, formatting, and error correction capabilities, making the typewriter obsolete. Although, some people still choose to use this old method at home as a nostalgic hobby. Fax machine. There was a time when, if you needed to send urgent documents, contracts, or an important letter, the fax machine was the savior. These heavy, bulky machines, located in the corner of the office, worked tirelessly every day, connecting people through phone lines. Do you remember the distinct sound when the fax started sending? A beep would sound, followed by a steady squeal, as the paper was slowly sucked into the machine. The sender waited on one side, the recipient anxiously on the other. Once done, you'd often have to call to confirm, "Did you get it?" The fax machine was once a symbol of speed, modernity, and, quote, high-tech for decades. It helped contracts get signed remotely, expedited orders, and kept offices running smoothly in a world without email. Then the internet came. Email was born. File attachments, e-signatures, all with a single click. The fax machine, once indispensable, quietly vanished from the office, just like so many other things once considered cutting edge. Cassette tapes and Walkman. Long before streaming services like Spotify existed, cassette tapes and Sony's personal player, the Walkman, were how we took music everywhere. They were the predecessors of CD players and Discman. Unlike other formats, cassette tapes allowed us to record our favorite tracks from the radio or other albums, creating personalized mixtapes. However, cassette tapes had many issues, making them an inferior format compared to digital. Do you remember the horror of the tape getting tangled? You needed a pencil or similar object to rewind the spool inside. Furthermore, cassettes were fragile, and the sound quality degraded over time and with the number of times they were played. With the development of Blu-ray and streaming services, along with the advent of digital music streaming services like Spotify, Apple Music, and thousands of other applications, mobile music players using physical discs, like Walkman, quickly became unnecessary. Digital formats brought maximum convenience, speed, and efficiency, pushing cassettes into oblivion. Today, they are just a memory of a bygone era. VHS tapes and VCRs. Long before streaming services became widespread and completely changed our viewing habits, VHS tapes and the VCR were the center of family entertainment. VHS tapes were bulky black boxes containing fragile magnetic tape. They created a cultural ritual for many Americans, the Friday night trip to video rental stores like Blockbuster to browse for a movie. However, VHS tapes and VCRs were quickly pushed into the past. VCR technology had to handle magnetic tapes that were not only bulky, but also easily damaged and needed to be rewound before returning. The disappearance of VHS happened step by step with technological advancements. Initially, they were replaced by DVDs, then Blu-ray, and finally, streaming services and on-demand content completely dominated the entertainment market. These services made physical audio-visual devices unnecessary. The convenience of instant viewing from a smartphone or smart TV eliminated the need for physical tapes and waiting in line at rental stores. Think this video needs improvement? Smash that like and drop a comment. We're all about getting better. Jukeboxes. Jukeboxes used to be a familiar sight at diners, bars, and pizza places. They were easily recognized by their bright, colorful lights and loud, echoing music. The experience with a jukebox was simple yet highly social. Just drop a coin in and you could select your favorite song from the wide catalog. It was a great way to share your favorite tracks with others. However, today, finding a physical jukebox is much harder. Like many other physical audiovisual technologies, jukeboxes have been replaced by superior digital solutions. Most people now carry their favorite music in their phones, thanks to various streaming services. Although the physical jukebox has almost vanished, there is still a more modern version of the jukebox. This version allows users to select songs from a digital catalog and request their favorite track. Cigarette vending machines. Decades ago, if you walked into a bar, restaurant, or even outside a convenience store, you'd easily spot the bright image of a cigarette vending machine. These devices were once symbols of immediate convenience and self-service, so common that they appeared in restaurants, bars, and other public places. Using the machine was simple and quick. Just drop a coin in, pull the lever, and your favorite pack popped out. However, this speedy, unsupervised operation led to a growing public concern. Children could easily purchase cigarettes as no one checked their ID. Due to these safety and age control issues, cigarette vending machines gradually began to disappear from daily life. Their elimination was a direct response to public health concerns. Today, if you are lucky enough to find one remaining machine, it's highly likely they have been repurposed to sell other items that are not cigarettes. This transition clearly demonstrates that when safety and health regulations are prioritized, even daily conveniences must yield to the common good. Carbon copy paper. Long before copiers became common or the CC carbon copy function in email was invented, we used carbon paper. This was a thin sheet covered in dry ink used to create physical duplicates of documents when writing or typing. In fact, the term CC in email originates from this very paper. The process of using carbon paper was quite involved and a little messy. You had to layer the carbon paper between the original document and the copy paper, then use pressure to transfer the ink from the carbon paper onto the sheet underneath. Now, in the world of digital files, printers, and photocopiers, carbon paper is entirely unnecessary. Manual credit card imprinters. Do you remember those small mechanical devices cashiers used to imprint credit cards? These devices, also called imprinters, leveraged the principle of carbon paper. The process was quite slow. First, the credit card was placed on the machine. Then, the carbon paper was placed on top. Next, the clerk would slide a component back and forth to create a physical raised print of the card information onto the carbon paper. This print created a copy for both the customer and the retailer. This was a time-consuming process that often caused checkout lines to back up. When digital payment systems and card swipers chips were introduced, these mechanical machines quickly became obsolete. X-ray shoe fitter, fluoroscope. Between the years 1920 and 1970, it was quite common to find an X-ray shoe fitter, fluoroscope, in shoe stores. This device was seen as a helpful tool, especially for children, to ensure they got a perfectly sized shoe. The process of using the machine was unique. The customer would place their foot inside, and through viewing portholes on the top and sides, salespeople and parents could view an X-ray image of the foot inside the shoe. This allowed them to clearly check the shoe's fit and ensure there was enough space for the foot. This device was highly beneficial for parents with growing children. However, by the 1970s, this technology was almost entirely eliminated. Most of the United States banned the use of fluoroscopes due to increasing concerns about radiation exposure. This concern was especially significant for children, as a child might try on many pairs of shoes each year as they grew, and the cumulative exposure became a worrying issue. The risk of exposure was even higher for salespeople, because they had to interact with the machine daily. Do you remember using any of the items in today's video? Tell us your memory in the comment section. Special U.S. coins. In the U.S. monetary system, cash registers are typically built around standard denominations: pennies, 1 cent, nickels, 5 cents, dimes, 10 cents, and quarters, 25 cents. However, some currencies were issued that now rarely appear in daily circulation, becoming collector's items. If you're old enough, you might remember seeing the 50-cent piece, the Eisenhower dollar, and the Susan B. Anthony dollar. These coins are no longer widely used, and the U.S. Mint mostly produces them primarily for collectors. Today's consumers typically use other forms of payment. In the future, regardless of which country we are in, we may see fewer different types of coins and paper money. Cash. Role as primary payment method. Cash, including coins and paper money, has been used as a means of payment for over 2,000 years. While cash still exists, its role as the primary method of payment is gradually disappearing and being heavily replaced by other forms of payment. Today, we have countless methods of payment: debit cards, Apple Pay, Google Pay, mobile apps, or many other forms. Instead of carrying cash in their wallets, people opt for electronic payments due to the convenience in transactions and shopping activities. The cashless trend is becoming popular worldwide. For example, Sweden is a pioneering country where many stores display signs that they do not accept cash, only credit cards, and 4 out of 5 transactions are conducted via card. The significant increase in the use of e-wallets, smartphone payments, and QR codes has accelerated this process. This change is particularly evident in the banking industry. One report warns that traditional banks will completely disappear within the next 5 to 10 years if they fail to successfully implement digital transformation. The high demand for online and mobile banking services is driving this digital transition. Drive-in movie speakers. There was a time when, on warm summer evenings, American families would drive to the drive-in movie theater, parking in long rows in front of the giant outdoor screen. And central to that experience was a small but indispensable item: the metal speaker hanging on the car window. The theater staff would hook that speaker onto your car window. When the window was rolled down, the movie audio played directly inside the car. A little fuzzy, a little quiet, but enough for the whole family to hear. Kids sat in the back eating popcorn. Parents watched the movie in the front, under the starry sky. It was a very American, very simple, and very warm evening. No surround sound, no Bluetooth. Just the sound of the night wind, the soft speaker audio, and the feeling that the whole world was slowing down in that moment. Today, drive-ins have nearly inhabited, and those window-hanging speakers are no longer used. Movie audio now goes straight to the car radio or personal headphones. More convenient, but the feeling of sharing a movie with a parking lot full of strangers now remains only a beautiful memory of old America. Camera film/videotape. Film for cameras. Most of us use personal phones to record special moments, but there was a time when film was the only method available for both still cameras and video cameras. Taking photos or videos with film required a lot of effort. You had to buy the equipment, buy the film, load the film into the camera, and be especially careful not to expose the film to light, otherwise everything would be ruined. Most importantly, you couldn't review the photo or video until you sent the film away to be developed. That was neither a fast nor cheap process, and you were limited in recording time or the number of exposures. Digital cameras and smartphones changed all of that, bringing instant gratification and unlimited editing capabilities. TV guides, physical books, magazines. There was a time when, before clicking the remote instantly told you what was on tonight, Every American household had a secret booklet on the coffee table or next to the sofa. That was the TV Guide. A thin weekly magazine featuring a highlighted show on the cover. Inside was a world of entertainment organized by time slot. Do you remember the family gathering to flip through the TV Guide on Sunday night? Dad checked for sports, Mom looked for a drama, and the kids were excited to see if there was a cartoon tonight. Some people even circled their favorite shows with a pen, marking them like an unmissable appointment. Back then, if you didn't look at the TV Guide, you might miss an important episode, and there was no easy rewatch like today. Each show airing was a one-time moment. Today, TV listings are right there on the screen, in the app or on your phone. Faster, more convenient, but the feeling of flipping through the thin pages, waiting for the exact time to turn on the TV, now remains only in memory. What older everyday items would you like us to cover next? Leave us a suggestion so we can make it for the next video. Thank you so much. Physical map books/atlases. Before voice-guided GPS and before phones knew exactly where you were every meter, American road trips were tied to thick paper maps and atlases. They were always somewhere in the glove compartment, on the living room shelf, or spread out on the kitchen table the night before every trip. Do you remember pulling over to the side of the road, unfolding that massive map, the wind flapping it around, and the whole family leaning down to trace the route? The driver asked, the passenger pointed, and the kids vaguely looked at the winding lines like a maze. Getting lost was common, and that's exactly why those trips became unforgettable memories. Paper maps didn't tell you to turn left in 200 meters. They required you to see, guess, and remember for yourself. Every turn was etched into your mind. Today, it takes just one tap on the screen. Faster, more accurate, but the feeling of opening the map together, finding the way together amidst the wind and sun, has quietly left our lives. Newspaper vending machines. Every morning back in the day, amidst the sound of cars rolling and the smell of hot coffee from small shops, you'd easily spot the silent newspaper vending machines standing on the sidewalk. Just drop a few coins in the slot, gently pull the metal door, and you had a brand new newspaper in your hands, the paper still smelling of fresh ink. Some bought the paper to read political news. Others just flipped quickly to the sports section, gas prices, or the classifieds. For many Americans, it was a familiar morning ritual, quick, simple, and full of the feeling of daily life. But these machines also had their limitations. Sometimes people exploited loopholes to take multiple copies at once. And then, when the internet arrived, providing news updated every minute on your phone, the need to stop on the side of the road for a paper gradually disappeared. Today, these newspaper vending machines are almost gone. They are faded by the sun and rain, standing silently somewhere like old witnesses of a time when people slowly received the news every morning with their own hands and real paper. Video rental stores. Blockbuster. Video rental stores, the most famous symbol of which is Blockbuster, were an indispensable part of many families' weekend entertainment ritual. For many, especially in America, the Friday night ritual meant a trip to Blockbuster to browse the aisles and pick a movie to watch. This was a physical experience, where you walked through the shelves filled with VHS tapes, which were bulky black boxes, and later DVDs, selected them, and took them home. However, this model came with inconveniences. VHS tapes and VCRs needed to be rewound before returning, and you always faced the risk of being charged late fees. The emergence of streaming services and on-demand content completely changed our viewing habits. Why drive to the store, face the tape being out of stock, and worry about late fees when you can instantly watch a movie right on your smartphone or smart TV? This change shows that consumers consist any of the items in this video. Please leave a comment sharing your memory. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the Back to Yesterday channel to continue returning with us to those familiar memory lanes. We'll see you on the next journey back in time.